So I went out to the Olympic Training Center for 2 weeks, and I called ahead of time. I was like, hey, I need to make sure I kind of have things to make my diet happen. It's very important to me, and it's helped me get to where I am. And he was really good with it, but he put me in touch with the nutritionist out there. She gave me a little bit of feedback saying like, hey, how about throwing these carbs in? I don't know how you're going to get through the week without carbs and doing this and doing that. And it's like, hey, I've been doing it. I feel amazing. And I didn't want to argue with her, but I was just like, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I'm going to stick to my carnivore diet and stick to what I'm doing.
Well, Seth, thank you for doing this. And it's congratulations, by the way, on your recent accomplishment. So you are a wrestler, and I'm an old guy learning how to do jiu-jitsu, and we do some wrestling within that as part of and I appreciate how damn hard it is. And it's a hard sport for sure. I knew when I grew up a little bit of time in the Midwest in Indiana, we had wrestling and PE. And I remember this kind of sucks, but you've done very well. Well, tell us a little about give us your background. So for people that don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up a wrestler. That's kind of just in my family. Everybody wrestled. My dad wrestled growing up, so he got me into wrestling at a young age, and I was fairly successful early on in wrestling, and I just absolutely loved it, regardless of I was doing all right. And as I kind of got older, I got pretty serious. Like, hey, I want to try to do this at the highest level. So I started competing probably in high school, kind of doing some nationally kind of ranked events and big things around the country, traveling around doing stuff. And so then I ended up doing pretty well at those, getting offered scholarships, going into college. And I attended South Dakota State University, who at the time was honestly probably not a very well-known Division I wrestling school. A lot of times people are like, oh, that even Division I, but I really had a connection with the coaches. I got along with them really well. And so I went to South Dakota State, and there I was able to become the first Division I national champion in any sport for South Dakota State University. And then from there, I wrestled there for 4 years. I graduated. I actually had a spinal L4, L5 spinal fusion in my back, which kept me off of the wrestling mat for a year and a half. And during that time, I graduated from South Dakota State, but still had a year of eligibility as far as wrestling. So I ended up transferring. My coach actually left for Wisconsin, so I transferred, went with him to Wisconsin for my final year of eligibility. And unfortunately, I got healthy. The back was a lot, it was holding me back quite a bit. I definitely wasn't where I was pre back surgery, but I wrestled that final year at Wisconsin, had a decent year, but that's the year the NCAA pulled the plug on everything due to COVID, and we weren't able to wrestle that year. And so fortunately, they brought me on as the assistant coach as soon as I graduated and gave me a place to start training. And my goal was always to be a world and Olympic champion. And so I started training for that pretty hardcore and seriously, well coaching these guys. And just about a couple months ago here, I made my first ever world team. So I'll go over to compete in Serbia at the World Championships here in September.
Awesome, man. Well, I mean, I didn't realize you had a spinal fusion. That's pretty impressive, particularly that particular operation, which is no small thing. And because you said South Dakota State, and you're right. I don't know what they traditionally do well at, but I mean, is it like Iowa would be a big wrestling school if I'm not mistaken? So Iowa.
Absolutely. Yeah, Big Ten absolutely dominates wrestling. So Iowa was probably on a streak for 20 years or whatever. Now Penn State's kind of the other school that's been kind of stepping in and dominating I think they've won maybe 7 out of the last 8, something like that. So, but the Big Ten is by far the most dominant conference for wrestling.
So when you start, right, what were you, like 4 years old or something like that when you first started wrestling? How old did you start?
Yeah, 4 or 5-ish, somewhere in there. And right at that age, it's more you go in and roll around and don't really know what you're doing. But yeah, I got around it, and I absolutely just love being there and every aspect of it. So I was always begging, hey, when's wrestling practice? When's wrestling practice? When can I get back there? And yeah.
Did you have any brothers or anything like that around the house that you wrestled with as a kid, or?
So I ended up, I have a younger brother, and he got into wrestling too. Not quite as serious. He liked it, but it was more of a hobby for him. But yeah, my sisters and my brothers, we were all rough with each other, always wrestling around and fighting and things like that. So it was wrestling at practice, but then get home and wrestle some more.
I mean, I'm looking at your ears, look like they're still relatively intact. They don't look, well, a little bit, maybe a little bit of cauliflower. Yeah.
Yeah, not terrible yet. I'm hoping they stay like this, but yeah, they can definitely get out of hand quick if you one bump the wrong way.
Did you do any other sports outside of wrestling, or has it always been just 100% wrestling?
Yeah, so I up until high school, I did football and soccer and wrestling, and soccer was probably my other favorite sport that I really enjoyed, but it was wrestling gets to be kind of year round because so it's interesting. It's probably not the most ideal setup, but there's 3 styles of wrestling: freestyle, Greco, folk style, and they're all kind of fall on different times of the year. So if you're wrestling on a high school team, that's folk style. That's all of the school year. And then as soon as the school year done, especially for people that, want to wrestle and win world titles, it's like freestyle season's all summer. So if you want to make that full commitment, it was almost like you got to do wrestling year round.
Can you just, for the person that has no clue, and I'll put myself in there a little bit. I'm not going to. I realize there's differences, but I don't really know the difference between Greco-Roman and freestyle. And I've never even heard of folk style, to be honest. So, can you just in 5 minutes give us the differences between the 3 styles?
Yeah, absolutely. So Greco is the easiest probably to differentiate from the other two. Greco it's probably the oldest, like most well known. Internationally most well known, where that's the style where you can't touch the other guy's legs, period. Like it's all upper body. You try to throw, so you see more higher, pretty cool stuff in there where people are literally picking them up, trying to toss them over their head, and a lot of stuff like that. But you can't touch the lower legs at all. If you do, you get penalized. So that's Greco. Freestyle and Greco are the international styles. So freestyle is the other one where it also is. It's a lot of high level moves, but now you can touch the legs. You can take them down, right? But when you take them down, you only get like 10 seconds to pin them, get turns, things like that, and then you're back on your feet. And then so folk style is what you wrestle in college, and it's the most different by far. And that's the people's biggest complaint. It's like you train college as folk style, you do that your whole life, and then all of a sudden you try to get ready for these international styles. But folk style is you try to get a takedown, and then you want to ride the guy for as long as you can, stay on top, not let him go. So it's more of that, right? And that's why, you see, I think it's more, you could relate it to more of a jiu-jitsu type thing where you get on top and you don't want to let the guy go ever. You want to ride them, you want to put them on their back, things like that. And where freestyle, you get 10 seconds, then you're back up on your feet trying to throw the guy again or get those exposure points. So folk style is by far the one that's kind of over here, and which is interesting because we're the only country in the world that wrestles folk style. No other country in the world even has it. And that's the one that we have guys training through college. So it's interesting that we have that system here.
Interesting. And obviously what brought you to my attention was the fact that you've been doing a carnivore diet, and wrestling is not an easy sport. It's a very hard, it's a very physically demanding sport, and there's a lot of strength and endurance and glycolytic versus speed. And you've been able to make the world team while on a carnivore diet. Is that true?
Absolutely. Yeah. So honestly, it is pretty crazy. So I started, I'll give you kind of the backstory on why I got into this. Cause I think that it was, it's been amazing ever since, but about 7 to 8 months ago, kind of January time, I was having really bad hip problems, and my back was starting to bug me really bad again. And I went in and got an MRI, and I had a really bad laberal tear, a pretty bad impingement, like a lot of stuff going on. And like, it was like, I couldn't lift my knee above my waist. Like I couldn't walk or run straight. Like it was bugging me that bad. And I was kind of meeting with some doctors and stuff, getting their opinions. And I was like, I want to get through this year if it's possible, like try to compete, make the world team this year. And they were like, all right, like basically giving me pills like, here, this will help deal with the inflammation, try to keep the pain out, and hopefully you can get through it. And I was taking the pills, and they helped to an extent in the beginning, but it was like less and less effective. And just how hard we trained, it just wasn't doing it. So I was like, what are the other options? Basically, they told me surgery. And I was like, I'm trying to get through this year. And so I started kind of doing some research on my own and just looking up things like, how do I get inflammation out of my body and this and that. And in the past, I've tried I've tried like a keto diet. I've tried, and the big one I did throughout college was just counting macros. But I came across kind of the carnivore community and just reading a lot of review, like personal review, people kind of their stories and how it's helped them. And one of the big things I saw was like a lot about like inflammation just being gone, and a lot of these things just naturally healing up that almost no pain. And I was like, why not give it a try and kind of see, what the results might be. And I kind of jumped in full on immediately in January, and I haven't really looked back, because within, I'd say 2.5, 3 weeks, it was like night and day, like how my hip felt, how my back felt, how my body felt. And then as I've continued doing it, it's like every day I feel like I see more and more benefits and things that it has really helped me with. And so it was, like I said, I just happened to stumble upon it, do a lot of research, read on it, and I never looked back once I started.
Did you see, and I'm not surprised, because I see it every day with regard to inflammation and joint pain and muscle pain. And I literally see it all the time, people getting better. Did you see a significant decrease in performance at all? Or was it all good? Or was there a transition period for you? Or how did that go for you as a very high level athlete?
To be honest, I think my performance immediately increased, if anything. And in the beginning, I probably threw in a decent, I threw in like honey. I threw in on days where I had 2-3 workouts. It's like I'd have some fruits and stuff like that. But really, like I'm to the point now where maybe once a week on a big day, I might have a little bit, almost no carbs at period now. But early on that, I was worried about that. I think it was more mental, like, because everybody, and that was a funny thing when I kind of came public that I was doing this, it was like everybody was jumping me, like, there's no way you can have the energy and do this and that. And so I think it got in my head a little bit, like, it is affecting, maybe it will affect my practices, but I kind of put that stuff aside. And it was like, I really didn't see like I said, I felt better conditioning wise. I felt better strength wise. I feel like, also now, before I was training at such a high level consistently, because I felt like I needed to do that. Now I'm a lot smarter with my training, where I feel like my body stays as strong, as good conditioning, without needing to put in 12, 15 workouts a week. Now I'm more 7, 8 workouts a week, and a lot of just recovery and focus on that. And so my training's even changed due to being into the carnivore diet and feeling like I said, like, for an example, I just got back from Tunisia, and I took about just a week off to recover my body, get back into the right time zone. And in the past, like, if I took a week off, like, I go back into practice and just feel awful that first practice and kind of need to work back into it. But I actually came back to my first practice this morning, and I felt the best I felt in weeks and months, and like absolutely amazing. So it's like, it just feels like everything, like traveling, usually I see a ton of inflammation when I get back and this and that, like body felt great coming back and get back into things.
How old are you now, Seth?
I'm 26.
26. So yeah, obviously I'm still well in the prime of your career from a wrestling standpoint, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Let me ask you, as far as, I think I saw something like when you made the spot to make the world team, you beat somebody who maybe you weren't supposed to beat. It was kind of an upset match. Can you tell me a little bit about who the opponent was and what was going on there? So
to make the world team, I won the challenge tournament, which gives you the chance to wrestle the defending guy at the weight class, his name was Dayton Fix, Oklahoma State. He was the returning silver medalist, and he'd actually last year beat me 10-0 in like 2 minutes, match over. So going into it, everybody was like, oh, he's gonna get beat real bad. It's gonna be quick. And basically had Dayton Fix written in as the guy at the weight class. And then I went to Final X, and it's called Final X, is where you wrestle and winner gets the spot. You do a best out of 3. And first match, it was 5-5. And when it's a tie, it's the last person to score wins. So he won the first match. And then when you wrestle 3, like pretty back to back, like 2 hours later, and kind of broke him a little bit. He got pretty exhausted the first match, and then going to the second match, he was still feeling a little bit. So I kind of took it to him, ended up winning the second one. And then the third one, I ended up winning by 4 or 5 points. But yeah, it was pretty, I would say 98% of people would have told you that I had no chance at winning that match. So yeah, it was.
Do you feel the difference between that and the year before? Was he not as good technically? Was he suffering from an injury, or did you just feel like you felt stronger, faster, better, or something? What was the difference, you think?
Oh, I felt 1,000 times better. And if you go back and watch, it's like, you could tell that like my conditioning was far superior the year before. He probably had a little better conditioning than I did, but you could tell I was equally as strong. And he's pretty strong, dominant, right? He's got silver medal at the world championship. So he was honestly probably at his prime when I beat him. He's been performing the best he's performed. So definitely, I would say it's not anything that he was falling off or anything. I think it was just the differences. And like I said, I felt stronger. I felt faster. And the biggest thing was conditioning. Like, I went nonstop basically from the minute the match started to finish. And the last time we wrestled, it was more of a methodical, slow paced match, where this was just a go, go, go kind of grind match.
Yeah. And how long are the matches typically?
They're 6 minute, 2-3 minute periods.
Yeah, that's tough. I can do. That's what we do at jiu-jitsu. In 6 minutes, when you're going hard, it's really, really, really challenging. And so the conditioning has been a different. How did you approach that day with your eating? I mean, was there an eating strategy that you had for that particular day?
Yeah. So I and that's the one thing I fine tuned. Kind of, we had the U.S. Open, we had the World Team Trials, and we had this. So I was kind of tweaking it and kind of working it up into that, but it stayed as similar, honestly, as I could that day. And then I did a little more carbs than I typically would, more fruit, more honey. And I did do, I think, maybe a tortilla, something like that. But it was that breakfast. I had a steak and eggs, and I had steak and eggs for breakfast. I remember I went out and got that and cooked it up. Did that in the morning, and that was all I ate probably before my match, besides putting in a lot of electrolytes, a lot of salt was really important, especially after weigh-ins, getting that stuff back into you. And then, like I said, as I got closer to the match, because you only get an hour and a half, 2 hours before you weigh in and you wrestle, so you can't go overdo it. But yeah, so I had steak and eggs, and then lead into it, I had some fruit and maybe like a tortilla and honey, and that was about it. And when I got that, and then as the day goes on, just little things.
Yeah, one of the, I guess, main parts of wrestling is making weight, and I don't know what's your competitive weight class, and what do you normally walk around at, and how hard was it to make weight using a carnivore approach?
And that was another huge thing. And one thing I've been making, so 61 kilos is my weight. It's 134 pounds. Before, I could get up to probably 150-ish and kind of be around there. But since I've started this, I've just stayed so lean. Like, I did my decks, I sit around 8%, 7% body fat, and have just been, ever since I started, just stayed pretty lean and right here. So like I walk around right now at 141. And so making weight, it's one workout away. It's pretty easy to get down. Where last year it was miserable getting down to weight, making weight. And yeah, so I think that also played a big role, because a lot of guys, right, they struggle to get down to weight, and that seems to affect them in that first match, where staying kind of just as lean as I possibly can and keep my body just at this level where it's just in striking distance. Like, I can make weight tomorrow if I needed to, where in the past I probably couldn't have said that. Like, I would need a week to dehydrate myself, burn off, all this stuff. And so it's been, making weight on the carnivore diet has been the easiest thing I've ever done. And even like going overseas, I was with all the other world team members, and they all struggled pretty big time making weight. And I was the one guy that was like, oh, this is easy. Like, not a problem.
And how much, just as a frame of reference, you said you're typically running around 140. What do you eat on a day? Like, how much food are you eating just normally, not internal weight cut, but just normally? What does it take to keep you there, given all your activity?
So typically, so I'll wake up in the morning and I pretty much do the same thing every day. I like to keep it. That's the one thing I love about this diet too, is like the simplicity of it. So I'll wake up, I'll probably have 4 to 5 eggs, and then I'll do this like beef sausage with it. Kind of mix that up, make a little scramble there. And that's pretty much my breakfast every day. And then I'll do, usually around lunchtime, I'll bring in either ground beef with me to work, with a little bit of eggs in that too. And typically my lunch, if I'm at work, if I'm at home, I'll usually cook up another steak, whether it be, I like to do more of a lean steak during the day. So I'll do just typical sirloin, something like that. And then at night, it's usually a big old ribeye, pretty much every day. And so like I said, it's pretty simple, a lot of eggs, a lot of steak, and then ground beef. And when I'm traveling, that's probably been the hardest struggle, is traveling and making this happen. But I've gotten kind of where I'll actually cook like 30 eggs, put it in a huge container, cook a bunch of ground beef, and I'll throw it in this little cooler and bring it with me. And that's kind of how I managed it on the road. I think that I struggled with that early, and I didn't think about it ahead of time. It was pretty hard, but now that's kind of what I do, even to make sure I stick to it, when I'm traveling.
You mentioned as you're going into this season, you had, pretty significant hip pain and a labral tear. How does that thing feeling now with the diet?
It's crazy. I feel like I don't have any problem with my hip whatsoever. Like zero. Like even when I get my leg lifted high in certain weird positions in wrestling, like there's zero pain, and it's crazy to me. Like I feel like if I went and got a MRI again, like it would tell me it's just like somehow healed itself up, and like it's that good now. And my back pain, like after back surgery, it was just constant lingering back pain from the moment I had it. Then I just kind of wrote it off as something I had to deal with and work around, where since I started this, that's gone too. And my mobility and like the way my body can, just the mobility and kind of, the stuff that I like feel good doing that I couldn't do 7-8 months ago is crazy.
Are you still up in Madison, Wisconsin, at University of Wisconsin?
Yeah.
And so you're still coaching the teammates, the athletes at that school? Have any of them asked you about what the hell's going on with the diet, or have you impacted anybody with that?
Yeah. So there's about 2 to 3 guys right now that are actually doing it as well. There's probably one guy that I'd say is like 100% in on it, like I am. And he's had almost like identical results, like as far as like his conditioning, he said better than ever. He also had a couple minor injuries that he said are just, he doesn't even notice them now. And so he's had very similar results to me, and he absolutely has loved it too. The 2 other guys I think are early on in doing it, but they've already kind of said like, wow, like my weight stayed low. I'm sweating better than ever. I feel like they just energy throughout practice. And one big thing is like that I noticed, and I asked them about, and they agreed, is like the mental clarity of it too. Like has really, really changed. Like I used to always wake up just like in a fog and, kind of getting through. Now I kind of wake up just like ready to go, just clear minded. And especially for our workouts, I think that's been a big thing.
Do you think it helps your, like in the middle of practice or a match where, there's a lot of thinking going on. You have to make moves and counter moves and, feints and all types of things. Has there been clarity of thought during the pressure of a match or practice?
Yeah. And that's one thing I've always kind of prided myself on, that I thought I was pretty good at, was kind of coaching myself in the moment to moment stuff in the past. But I feel like this year, like even in that series where I wrestled the silver medalist, it was like I was making these tiny adjustments that I feel like I wouldn't have been able to notice, a year ago, that I wouldn't have in the match. He hit me with this thing. Now I know I can't do this moving forward. And now I gotta use my left hand versus my right. There's little things that I was like doing in the moment, and it didn't feel hard to make those adjustments. It was just like happening. And as the match goes on, I felt like I was so adjusted by the second period that I was like, I'm gonna get this, dude. Like my confidence was just going up as the match went on. And so that was another thing that like mentally going out there and wrestling has felt like just more confidence than I've ever had, and just more clarity. And honestly, like it's been taking the nerves away and just making me kind of wrestle free out there.
How did so what was, to me, I know another wrestler that was in Tunisia that I kind of met through jiu-jitsu. I know she was competing. What was the event in Tunisia, and how did things go for you over there?
So that was so they do about 4 ranking series events throughout the whole year, and that kind of gets you your seed for the world championship. So this was the last ranking series one. And so it had people from all over the place, a lot of Turkey, a lot of India, Tunisia was there, Kazakhstan. It's just all over the place. And so we traveled over there about a week before and kind of got acclimated. But this was, a big one as far as getting your seed for the world championships. And we brought 7 guy on the men's freestyle side. We brought 7 guys, and then we had a lot of girls. I think 14 girls went over and competed as well. And on the men's side, I think we had I think every single guy actually medaled. So we had 7 medalists, 4 champs. Me and 3 others got first place at this, and I actually wrestled another silver medalist he was a silver medalist and bronze medalist in 2019, 2020 that I actually wrestled and beat him there. So that was big for seeding purposes. But yeah, I went over and won that tournament, and so I'll have more points for getting seeded at Worlds.
And when and where are Worlds going to be?
They're in Serbia, September 17 and 18.
So coming up very soon. So
coming up quick, and then we leave. Yeah, we leave 2 weeks before to go to Germany, get acclimated, and so it's coming quick.
And and again, I'm still being relatively new to wrestling. I mean, I can remember like the Soviet Union putting out pretty good wrestlers. Where is the best wrestlers in the world right now? I know the U.S. is always in there, but where are the best guys coming from?
So the top 3 consistently is Russia is always probably the toughest. They're probably the most successful and still are, but they're actually banned from the World Championships this year, so they won't be there. But it's typically Russia, and then us and Iran are kind of the 3 teams that are always in the hunt to win. Russia probably usually edges it out more often than not, but those are the three top teams.
So do you know, obviously you're going there. Do you know who your likely competitors are going to be in your weight class and what they're, what are you expecting to run into? And should we send them Beyond Meat burgers to eat or something like that?
Yeah, we should. We definitely should do that. But yeah, you get like, they'll submit a list when you get closer, but we have a pretty good idea. Like, hey, that guy's who they sent last year. He's been killing it. And so they're probably going to send him. And there's this young guy that's coming up. So we do a lot of film study and figuring out, and we'll check who maybe the top 3 guys are in each country and keep an eye on them. And then they'll submit, I think it's mid-August, late August, that they'll have to submit who they're sending to the World Championships. So once that happens, then we'll really go in and break down every guy.
And I assume there's a U.S. coach. I mean, who's the U.S. coach? And does he talk to you about your diet at all? Is he concerned? Is he I know I had a guy in the U.S. Olympic rowing team was doing carnivore, doing very well.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like they didn't really have much nutritional strategy. They didn't even have any strength training, which I thought was crazy. The U.S. Olympic team doesn't even have a strength training coach. Well, what's your interaction with the U.S. coach, Ben? And is he talking about your diet at all?
Yeah, so he was good. He was actually called. So I went out to the Olympic Training Center for 2 weeks, and I called ahead of time. I was like, hey, I need to make sure I kind of have things to make my diet happen. It's very important to me, and it's helped me get to where I am. And he was really good with it, but he put me in touch with the nutritionist out there. And she gave me a little bit of feedback saying like, hey, how about throwing these carbs in? I don't know how you're going to get through the week without carbs and doing this and doing that. And it's like, hey, I've been doing it. I feel amazing. And I didn't want to argue with her, but I was just like, I mean, I get where you're coming from, but I'm going to stick to my carnivore diet and stick to what I'm doing and stuff like that. But she was kind of very hesitant about it. She's like, I don't know how you're going to, especially out at the Olympic Training Center where we're at. It's in Colorado Springs, where there's a ton of elevation. And she was super worried about me, and for whatever reason, and I went out there and I did really well at camp. And so I think she kind of, after she saw, like, I was probably one of the guys that was hit the least by the elevation. Like, I went out there, and first day there, I ran 4 miles and got a workout in and did all this stuff, and no issues with the elevation. She's like, all right, well, she kind of stepped back a little bit, but she was, a little hesitant at first.
You mentioned the Russian team not being able to compete. I'm assuming it's had to do with doping violations, would be my guess. I mean, unless there's some other reason, but that's my assumption. And has anybody started to, hey, this guy must be on some stuff because he's in full form? I get that all the time. I'm a 55-year-old man. Let's go on steroids. And I'm like, no, I don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
Has there been any sort of talk about that or any concerns or accusations? And I'm sure you get tested pretty regularly, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think that, so I've actually, in the last probably month, I probably got tested 7 times. It's weird. I have gotten tested a whole lot more than I ever had prior, which it could be because making the team and stuff, but not a whole lot of people saying that stuff too much. You know, a lot of people ask me, and when I put it out there, it's pretty crazy. I'd say it's 50 to 60% of people are like, what are you doing? You're going to hurt your body long term. This is terrible for you. 10%, they're just kind of like, oh, that's good for you if it works for you. And then I had 20 to 30% of people are like, hey, tell me about this. I want to try it out. I've heard about it. And so it's been, I sit on social media now, and that's probably 75% of what I'm talking about with people is, hey, what I'm doing for my diet now and what the carnivore diet is and everything like that. But so it's been not too much accusations, just because I think people know how much, you get tested and stuff, and people would know. But yeah, a lot of, like I said, 60 to 60% is probably, hey, this is there's no way it's going to be a long-term thing for you. Like when you get older, you're going to have problems. And then a lot of other people though that want to know about it, are interested to learn the benefits. And because a lot of them seen like when I wrestled last year, they saw how I looked. I looked frail. I looked skinny. I looked like I was dying to make 61 kilos, where this year I looked strong and pretty chiseled and good when I walked out there, and really healthy. And so people kind of saw that. And I think that interested in like, hey, what are you doing? How did you make that transformation?
Yeah, it's interesting because when I, 5 years ago, when I was just on a rowing machine, I broke world records, and I'm like, there's something here. There's something definitely here. I know, because I've been training for 40 years, and it's a big difference in my performance. And I remember arguing with some dietitian who works with Olympic athletes, saying, well, this is ridiculous. It's never. And I said, I'm sure there's going to be athletes that are going to do this and benefit. And it's good to see. And I've seen many of them now, NFL football players, MMA fighters, obviously doing this, rugby players. So clearly, for at least some people, it works extremely, extremely well. As far as, your, your approach to the world's, anything different that you have to do, or are you just going to keep more of the same? Is there, are you spending time with the U.S. team now? Do you guys have more training camps together?
Yeah. So August 10th to 20th, I'll go back out to Colorado Springs. We'll do a training camp out there. And that's a big one. They'll bring in pretty much as many partners as they can get from around the country, all the top guys. Usually they try to get top 3 or 4 at every single weight, bring them out to Colorado Springs. And that'll be kind of pretty intense week, a lot of intensity. Back down a little bit. August 20th till the end of the month will be more technical things, continue strength training, and keep the cardio up. And then we turn around and leave September 3rd, and we'll go out to Germany. We'll do an acclimation camp out there, which will be, once you get out there, it's more, how do I make sure I'm feeling my best? How do I technically be ready? How am I mentally preparing? So it'll be pretty, whatever you need out there, kind of, and I'll play it day by day. Today I'm feeling like I want to get, pretty intense one in. Tomorrow I want to spend some time on technique, and then kind of just play it by ear once we get out there.
How do you plan on dealing with the food out in Serbia and Germany? And do you bring your own with you, or is it something you can use that you think you're going to be able to easily find food there?
Yeah. So Germany, we're actually at Ramstein Air Force Base.
Right.
And so that'll be pretty, I've talked to them, and they've said they'll have it. They'll always have good options, and they got a lot of grocery stores nearby. And if we need to figure it out, that they'll have it over there. Serbia will be the tricky one that I've talked to them, kind of probably try to load up in Ramstein and make sure, just in case, that I have everything I need when I go there to Serbia. They said Serbia's kind of hit or miss as far as what we'll have access to and this and that. So it's, I'm going to make sure in Germany, if I need to, they'll contact and talk around in Serbia, figure out what we'll have, what we won't, and whatever I don't have, I'll make sure to get it in Germany and bring it with.
Back in the day, you can read about like boxers would sit there and, drink blood or eat heart, before they go in and train. And this is, from the 1930s and stuff like that. That was actually pretty not that uncommon practice. Are you doing any of that stuff, or is it just cooking a steak and eggs? Is it kind of, do you need the raw stuff, the raw blood, the raw heart? Or how do you cook your steak? Do you cook them normally?
Yeah. So I actually, I have done raw liver. I've tried it. Didn't love it, but it was all right. But I do eat liver probably once or twice a week, but I cook it up and I eat it like that. But yeah, I like my steaks rare, medium rare, somewhere in there. So I eat them pretty bloody and like that. But yeah, I like it all. I don't necessarily take a hard and take a bite right before I go out on the match, and to wrestle. But yeah, I like that. I've tried all that, and I actually really do like heart a lot. It's what probably one of my favorites. I don't get it enough, but heart's really good.
There's one of our members here is, I know she's a mom. She's got sons, I think, that wrestle, and she was asking if you had any just general advice for a high school wrestling kid. I mean, is there anything you tell them just in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I look back and I say this a lot to when I'm around the country recruiting kids and just in camps and stuff. It's just like the importance of diet. At a high, if you want to be successful in high school, you're going to separate yourself so quickly by focusing on your diet. Like in high school, I remember I was making weight and then eating hot Cheetos, drinking Mountain Dew, and then going out there and wrestling and just thinking that was the normal. And I got away with it because, right, I was probably a little bit more talented than some kids or technique wise, but it was like that held me back for so long in my career that I just couldn't see that it's not just wrestling, what you do in the practice. You can't outwork in the wrestling room your diet. You can't outwork your recovery, right? So you got to, right, every area, if you really want to be successful, you got to be bought in, and how you sleep, eat, recover, and how you live your life, right? It's not, like I said, your success in wrestling it's not about showing up and doing your best in practice. There's a lot of pieces that go into it.
Do you have any prior to the World Champs? Are you done competing until the World Championship, or are you just basically competition season's over?
Yep. So that was the last ranking series. So now it's just staying training camp and getting ready.
And so we're 2022. So next Olympics, 2024. Any thoughts on that? Are you potentially on the Olympic team, or are you the default guy at this point, or how does that work? And when does that build up start?
Yeah. So that'll be, that's the biggest goal, and I'll be in there in the mix for sure. So how it works, actually, they cut the weight. It kind of sucks. A couple of years back when they were talking about cutting Olympic or wrestling from the Olympics, they actually removed a lot of the weight classes. So now there's only half the weight classes for Olympic years versus World Championship years. So the weight class I wrestle is not an Olympic weight. So my plan is kind of, as soon as I'm done with the World Championships next year, I'm going to try to go up to 65 kilograms. So really try to put on some strength, put on some weight, and try to make the Olympic team at 65 kilograms in 2024.
So that's basically 4 kilograms, so about 8-9 pounds. So that's reasonable. I think that's doable. But do you feel? Obviously, that's your natural walking around weight, basically. But you want to have 60 more pounds of muscle on you for sure.
Exactly.
Do you have a strategy for that? What are you going to do? Because a lot of people, one of the criticisms, is like, man, I can get ripped on a carnivore diet, but it's harder to put on size and strength and muscle. So do you have a thought on how you're going to do that?
Yeah. And I think, obviously I probably need to think more about it and get an actual game plan, but definitely continue to, like I said, right now I just eat till I'm hungry or eat till I'm full, and then I'm good. And I'm really try to push down more protein, eat probably more, just really up on to what I'm eating and stuff. And then really, I think strength training right now, I'm doing a lot more, a lot of reps, lighter weights, stuff like that. So really ramping up on putting heavier strength training together, really building muscle up. And I know like I did. So I wrestled 65 kilos early in this year just to see how I felt there. And I was able to put on weight pretty easy. I actually got up to 152-ish and then came down to 65 kilos. And I beat the number 2 guy at that weight, at 65 kilos. And I didn't really have a strength problem or didn't feel any smaller than he did. So I think it'll be a pretty easy transition. I'm 5'9", so I'm by far the farthest 61 kilo guy in the US, and pretty much anyone I've wrestled internationally so far. So I got a pretty good frame that hopefully put on some size.
So you said, I mean, the tallest, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and is that a unique advantage in wrestling? I know in jiu-jitsu, there are advantages for being long legs, but there's also advantages for being shorter, depending on what your style is. And so, do you have and I don't know enough about it, but do you have a particular type of style that you differentiates you from some of the other opponents?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'd say that I'm known for being kind of funky, unorthodox, like probably anything the coach told me to do, I did the opposite and found a way to kind of make it work. So I got a pretty like one big thing, like people take a lot of shots, right? People try to get to your legs. And one thing that coaches, the first thing they teach you when you get into wrestling is, hey, don't let a guy touch your legs ever. Keep your legs back. Sprawl, things like that. But my where I've had a ton of success is actually guys get to my legs and then I score off of their attack. So a lot of counter offense stuff. And yeah, like I said, just unorthodox guys have never felt it before. And then I kind of hit them in a move. And so that's what I'd say. It's just an unorthodox style. And yeah, that length helps a lot with that, right? They have my leg in the air and I'm reaching down and grabbing their leg over on this side and just doing, a little bit different.
Do you find that, that's the one, people say, well, you don't have the explosive energy without carbohydrates. Do you feel like you can explode pretty well? I mean, there's a lot of that. I know going for a double leg or something like that, there's a lot of explosion you have to be able to do, right?
Yeah. And I haven't felt any, I feel, like I said, I think that since my hip pain and my back pain's gone, that like the carbs, whenever, and it's great. Like the days I do have a little bit of carbs, I feel it a little bit. Or if I ever do have a day where I had something, like I feel it the next day and I feel so tight that I don't have explosiveness, where I think just keeping my hip healthy and my back healthy and feeling good, like that explosion comes back. And even in the weight room, like I've been able to start doing things that I couldn't do for a long time. Like I had our strength training coach, like basically work around like, hey, I can't do any of this hip stuff. I can't do any of this back. I wasn't squatting for a while. So there's so many things that I wasn't doing that now I do all of it. And I think that that's really built my explosiveness back up better than it's been in the past.
Yeah, that's the one point I try to make is that, and I feel this as an old guy. I've got a lot of injuries. I've got a lot of miles on me. And if I have carbohydrates, I do feel it. I feel like my elbow, my hip, my back, whatever is sore, and it impedes my ability to train. And so maybe for someone who has some injuries, this is a very good way, or an older athlete, or something like that. And if you're young and don't have anything wrong, maybe you can handle a little bit more carbohydrates. But even, you're saying even things like fruit and honey, which are most people would say relatively innocuous, you still can feel some stiffness and some stuff with that occasionally.
Not as bad. I think that it's mostly like for example, I did have, like I said, I had a tortilla and a little bit of bread on the day I compete or whatever, and like the next day I'll feel that, or like even traveling back, like on the airplane, like it was like a 9-hour flight, and they gave us a bread with like a cheese sandwich with like a cheese spread in it, and I was like, can't eat this. And I was sitting there and couldn't do it, and then I had then they gave some crackers, and I was like, all right. So I ended up having something little on that way home, and that I felt it. I feel, it's like literally the tightness in my back, right where it is, it just comes back quick, and it's like, and that's why it's like it's easy for me to stick to this diet because of how good I feel. Like I don't want to feel any other way than how I feel right now. So it's like, yeah, I notice it too quick, so I'm keeping all that stuff out.
How much of your diet is, when you talk about meat and eggs, and obviously eggs are there, but I mean, is it mostly beef, or are you doing lamb and chicken and pork and fish, or is it almost all beef?
Yeah, when I'm home, it's 90% beef, a little bit of pork in there every once in a while. When I was in Tunisia, I think that a lot of it was lamb. Mm-hmm. That was just kind of what they had. Yeah. Some beef, but yeah, it was a lot of lamb there. But yeah, when I'm at home, I prefer beef over any other meat for sure.
Have you had any, as a member of the U.S. World Team, have you had any like beef producers say, "Hey, Seth, man, let us sponsor you," or anything? Has that happened yet at all?
So I'm hoping. I've been working on it, trying to get a sponsorship. I've had like people give me like meat packs and things like that, and send me some stuff to try. But yeah, I've been in contact. I'm trying to make something happen.
Yeah, I mean, it seems obvious that they would want to, say, hey, look, we've got a guy that's, one of the best in the world, and I think it's fair to say that is, and meat is making the difference there. So,
Yeah.
any ranchers listening to this, and
Yeah.
I'll try to see if some of the people that I know maybe can help you out with that, because I know
That'd
there's
be
some folks
awesome.
that are in the Midwest that produce some really good beef. And I'm thinking one in particular, better fed beef, which might be a good fit for you. But as far as have you had any negativity thrown your way because you're now? I mean, because it seems fashionable to say I'm going to go vegan. Have you
Yeah.
wrestled against any vegans? Do you know any vegan wrestlers? What are your thoughts on that particular strategy?
Yeah, there's some vegan wrestlers and stuff, and there's some guys that have done it that way. One funny thing is, so after I put out like my big post, kind of putting out some of the benefits I'd seen from the carnivore diet, there's this big wrestling forum like where everybody goes on post stuff, and basically somebody started it, and it was just this long form just bashing the carnivore diet. I think they brought you up something about how you're on. I think they brought up that you're taking, you just take steroids, something like that to that effect. But these guys are just on there bashing it and just arguing back and forth and bringing up like, hey, this guy won when he was vegan and things like that. So I thought that was pretty funny. That after I won, that was a big conversation for probably 2-3 weeks online. Was like a lot, and then like I said, there's those people that were defending the carnivore diet pretty hardcore too, and saying like, hey, these are the benefits. These are, and putting studies out there so people could read it. But yeah, there was a lot of back and forth about vegan. You had some vegan people trying to defend that and talk about how that was so much better. So it's there's a few. I don't know a lot of the high level, like the guys on the world team. I was actually kind of picking their brain about what they do for their diets. The heavier guys it seems like they can, the heavyweights, the heavier guys, they kind of get away with doing whatever for their diet. They're not super, didn't like have this that they do. But some of the lighter guys around my weight, one guy does he does keto. Pretty much he said he cycles in carbs, but does mainly keto. The guy above me was similar. He said he does a low carb diet, but isn't keto or carnivore, but does low carb. So it was interesting to see that it really not that they're doing the carnivore diet, but getting rid of those carbs seems to be really effective for a lot of the guys.
Yeah, particularly, I'm sure if you're going to make one of the lighter weight classes, and so the guy above you's in the 65s, I would assume, correct? So you got to basically knock him off. So don't tell him not to do carnivore. Then
yeah, I was selling the vegan one to him.
Sell the vegan one to him. Yeah, exactly. So what about family? Are they worried about you? Like, oh my God, you're going to kill yourself. All this red meat is going to cause heart disease and cancer. What's going on with mom and dad and that stuff?
They're a little, yeah. My dad doesn't. He's all about. He's like, whatever. I love him, and I go home, and now he buys me big old steaks every time because he knows I'm on the carnivore diet. Or if he ever comes to town, he's like, let's go grab a steak. So he's great. My mom actually, she's done a lot of. She tweaks her diet. She's pretty big into the nutrition side, so she's done vegetarian, she's done vegan, she's done a lot of those. So she's probably. She's not trying to push me not to do it at all, but she's kind of denies that it actually, that the results I'm having are because of the carnivore diet. But it's interesting. She's kind of slowly seemed to like open up to it and kind of starting to add a little of the things that I do to her stuff. And I think that it's a matter of time for her. But yeah, at first they just thought it was like, oh, something I was going to do and didn't, matter that much. But, how I think it's crazy. Just, I'm very passionate about it. So it ends up being every time I go home or see family, it seems to be a big talk every time we're there and get into it a little bit. But yeah, she seems to be a little more open to it now.
And where home is where? It's South Dakota or somewhere else?
Minnesota. Yeah.
Oh, Minnesota. Okay. So yeah, there's definitely, like I said, so you're used to that cold weather up there.
Yeah.
Anybody from like your old wrestling team, any of the guys on South Dakota State team reached out to you now that you're, just obviously you've been, because you said you won the national championship. You were already a high level wrestler, but you just maybe stepped up your game even a little bit more.
Yeah. And yeah, I definitely have had a lot of people reach out and a lot since, like I said, I put that post out about kind of the things I'd seen. Like I said, I've probably talked to 100+ wrestlers about what I do. And a lot of them just asking like, how can I try it out? And I just told them, for 1 month, try to do this. And I basically keep it simple. I'm like, just ground beef, eggs, steak, a little bit of dairy if you want to, just things like that. But you commit to it and see how you feel. And a lot of them are kind of getting to that 1 month mark and telling me like, this is amazing. This is, has been making a huge difference, and that they've seen similar results that I have. So it's been cool. And I think that, I think carnivore diet is going to be a pretty big thing. I think, as far as the wrestling community, because like I said, like making weight constantly, keeping your body lean it's hard with, the carbs. And like I remember how stressful it was, because I was doing macros where I was counting, like I got to hit this many carbs, this many proteins, this many fats. And it was stressful on top of my training, on top of school, on top of everything I had to go on. It was like, and then I felt like I ruined everything if I missed my macros on one thing. I didn't get enough carbs that day, or I was short of my fat. And so I remember just how stressful and like how much anxiety that gave me, that I felt like I was ruining my training because I wasn't hitting my numbers. And now it's like, you don't have to worry about that. It's so simple. And so that's been big.
Yeah, maybe we'll see the 2024 U.S. Olympic team. Most of the people on the carnivore diet there and dominate. It would be interesting. Seth, we're running out of time, and I want to say, first of all, thank you for doing this. And you're a great example, and obviously just a wonderful person to talk to, and it's a great positive role model for people that I think just want to live life in general. But where do people go to find out more about what you're doing? Do you have a website? Do you have a social media handle? Where can we find you?
Yeah. So my social media on everything is God's Wrestler 133. You can find me there on Twitter, on Instagram, TikTok, if you're a TikToker. Obviously, I stay pretty active on all of those. And I'm always, I'll respond to any messages people send me and try to get back to everybody. So, yeah.
And God said it's good to eat meat, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome stuff. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and good luck to you. Wishing you the best at the Worlds, and love to see you take that home and keep pushing on. So good luck with the rest of it. And
I appreciate it. It's nice to see everybody and appreciate everybody. So thank you.
Awesome. So maybe we'll reach out again down the road once you kind of won the World Championships and are on the Olympic team. So all right, man.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Seth. Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
See you later.